And we are live. Welcome everybody. My name is Andrew. Thanks for joining us today on the launch pad. We're out here taking a look at Starbase to see what kind of activity we might see today. So in specifically, I think we might see Booster 7 move sometime soon and hopefully today. So just a little while ago we saw the Orbital launch tower Chopsticks raise up and grab Booster 7 at the top. So we're thinking that there's a possibility that they might take that off the orbital launch mount onto the transport, the SPMT, and roll it over to the build site. So we're here with you live. I'll be giving you commentary off and on, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. But yeah, we're just here to hang out and see what Starbase is up to today. So enjoy, join us, and sit back and watch. I see everybody in the chat. Thanks for joining us today. Welcome Lori, welcome Black Widow, Andy, John Fairs, Captain Brad, and Kevin. Thank you all for joining us today. We have a question. Why are they lifting the booster? So if they do indeed lift the booster today, they'll be doing that to roll it to the build site. Now they want to get it out to the build site because they're better equipped to check out the engines at the build site. You may have heard a couple days ago that there was an anomaly during Booster 7 testing, which caused, I guess we could call it an explosion. So that explosion happened at the base of the vehicle, on the bottom of the orbital launch mount, and could have impacted the quality, how the engines, and we want to make sure they're not damaged. So SpaceX is likely going to lift Booster 7 off the pad, put it onto the transport, bring it over to the build site, and check out those engines in better detail, with the hopes that they check them out, everything looks good, and they can ship it back over to the launch pad and continue with testing. But that will, we'll have to see what happens there. Yep, the transporter is a self-propelled modular transport vehicle, also known as an SPMT. Hello Joshi, hello Ankla. And of course, from our perspective here, if they do end up moving Booster 7, we should see a great view from all the way at the launch site to the build site. So we should be able to see the whole thing here. Yeah, don't mind I'm sitting in a vehicle right now, so you might hear me moving around and shifting around the vehicle. We got leather seats in here, and yeah, it's not the quietest vehicle in the world. Yeah, no unexpected boom today, that's for sure. At least we can hope for that, but if we see any testing today, it should be it should be pretty low-key. Groovy is watching in the middle of nowhere in a rainstorm with Starlink. Well, Groovy, this is a pretty cool example of technology, because not only are you watching because of Starlink, but I am uploading the stream via Starlink. So this whole transaction here is pretty much happening through space communications for you. That's really cool. Bumblebee asks if it's a Tesla. No, it's a Jeep. Did SpaceX ever say what caused the explosion? So they gave us some indications of what they were thinking about what caused the explosion. Now, they didn't come right out and say it exactly. They were a little vague about it, but so it sounds like to me that when they were doing the spin test, and actually this is a good point. We can go over the whole testing timeline and everything that they were going through to kind of give you an idea of how close we are to static fires and all that stuff. But they were going through what's called a spin test. So they were basically shooting LOX, or liquid oxygen, out of the engines, and something ignited that. So it's still kind of unclear whether or not there was any methane involved, but it was quite the little explosion. So I think a lot of people are thinking that there may have been some sort of methane involved, but that is speculation. Well, we don't know for sure until somebody comes right out and says that. I don't think we're going to hear that, but either way, I think it was a great learning opportunity for SpaceX, and they've already come out and said how they're going to try to keep that from happening again in the future. So I think it looked really bad when it had happened, but I'm thinking we're not in nearly as bad of a spot as we thought we were when we saw that explosion and that fire. Do y'all think CRS-25 will do the jellyfish tonight? That's actually a great question. Is it happening shortly after sunset? I don't have the time in front of me. Maybe a static charge. So it's possible. It could have been really many different ignition sources. Launch tonight from Florida is at 8:44 p.m. Eastern Time. Sunsets at 8:22 p.m. Eastern Time. So I think that's a great question. I think there's a pretty good chance you might see that jellyfish effect tonight. So if y'all haven't seen that before, I would highly recommend tuning in to the SpaceX launch tonight, and you might see something really special shortly after launch. The way that the gases interact with the light reflection looks absolutely unreal. It's such an amazing thing to see, so make sure you tune in for that later tonight. Cynthia said, "Did it explode? I just got here." No explosions today, Cynthia. We're waiting to see if SpaceX is going to move Booster 7 back to the build site for further inspections after the explosion that we saw earlier this week. Yeah, Almeria, exactly. Every failure is a learning experience. We've seen that a lot in this campaign and getting Starship and Super Heavy to the place it is now. There has been a lot of learning experiences, a lot of booms, but I don't think anybody can question the advancements that SpaceX has made in the last year or two. We just linked the launch stream in the chat just now, so that's happening later tonight. Definitely tune in and potentially see that jellyfish effect.
Oh, look at that fish. On a good side.
Oh, sorry, I think we got bumped a little bit on the camera here. Back to center. We have a question: what could have caused the explosion under B7 if there was no methane involved? So, I don't think that's a certain statement that methane wasn't involved. I think that's a question mark at this moment. But to answer the question, it could really have been any ignition source. There's a lot of speculation happening, but there could have been just a static charge somewhere. There could have been some equipment on the ground that was causing a spark. So we don't really know for sure. I would imagine that SpaceX has a decent idea, but I don't know how much more we're going to learn about, the true root cause of that explosion. For anybody that is tuning in that is kind of new to the whole Starship program, I'll spend like just 2 minutes kind of explaining what we're looking at today, and kind of a whole overview of Starbase. I know a lot of you know what's happening here, so I'm not going to go very deep or very long, but just to kind of catch everybody up that might not know what we're looking at, we're down here in Texas. We're looking at Starbase, Texas. This is in Boca Chica. We're down near the border. Starbase is like, I think, 2 or 3 miles from the actual border with Mexico. Here, SpaceX is building and designing the next generation of launch vehicles that is planned to bring humans back to the moon and eventually to Mars. Starship can do much more than that as well. It can, deploy a lot of satellites into orbit. It can be used for, ground-to-ground transportation. You might be able to jump in a Starship in a couple decades and go to London instead of taking a plane. So they've been building this rocket and testing this rocket here for the last couple of years, and we're getting closer to an orbital launch attempt. So at some point, hopefully soon in the next few months, if not sooner, we will actually see the first ever orbital launch of Starship from here. And now, kind of building up to that moment, there's a lot of testing happening on booster number 7, which is what we're looking at here today, and Starship S-24, which you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. These are the vehicles that SpaceX hopes to bring to space for the first time. So they're running all sorts of tests on it. They're loading it up with cryogenic fuel to make sure it can handle the cryo. They're testing the pressure, they're pressure testing it to make sure it's not going to pop. And the next couple of big tests would have been a static fire test. So that's basically igniting the engines for a short period of time to make sure everything is working correctly with the vehicle and engines and the integration between them two. And one of the things you have to do prior to a static fire test is what is called a spin test. So they just they feed liquid oxygen through the turbo pumps, the oxygen turbo pumps on the engine. And normally what you see is just kind of a lot of liquid oxygen clouds coming out of the bottom of the vehicle, and that would be a nominal test. However, in this case, we did see something ignited those fumes, and there might have been another fuel involved, and that's what happened this week. So there was a bit of an explosion. There's some damage to the launch pad and launch mount. There might be some damage to Booster 7, but we have to find out exactly how much damage. So we're here now, watching Booster 7 at the orbital launch mount, and waiting to see if SpaceX is going to lift it off of the pad onto the SPMT and drive it all the way back to the build site. And if they do that today, we'll have a view of the whole drive from launch pad to build site. So that should be really cool. But yeah, that's just a quick summary about what's going on here. I just wanted to kind of bring everybody up to speed. If you have any questions about anything, just let me know. And we're just going to be hanging here, reading from chat. But thanks everybody for joining us here so far. Kevin says it could be an important thing. We will learn from this and move forward. Absolutely. So SpaceX's strategy for this program is test early and often. This is complete opposition to what we see with like SLS, where they design everything for many, many, many years and engineer every possible, figure out what every possible outcome based on the engineering that they're doing on the vehicle. And then pretty much the first time you ever see the vehicle put together is when it's almost ready for launch. Now with this, we of course have seen many, many iterations of Starship and a few of Super Heavy. We've seen some quote-unquote failures, some explosions, but all of those have been beneficial to kind of get SpaceX where they are now with this program. So yeah, so it's honestly hard to call things like this a failure. We're still early in the program. We want to see SpaceX working out these bugs and issues now, and not a couple hundred launches down the line when there's precious cargo or even potentially crew on board. Paul says sound might be a bit weak. I'm at 100% volume and still hard to hear. Let me check my levels. It looks like I could, yeah, it looks like I might be able to bump it up just a little bit. All right, so I've bumped up the audio a little bit, so I'm just checking now to make sure I'm not peaking it out. Test 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And Black Widow says volume is loud. So I've made some adjustments on my end. The TLP Studio might need to adjust as well. Hopefully I'm not blowing everybody's eardrums out. Black Widow says volume is good. Awesome. Hey Lori, make sure not only, oh, you said your laptop and YouTube volume is full. Gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna suggest checking your YouTube volume, but yeah. Dan just found this channel. Hello. Hey Dan, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate you coming out and checking out what we got going on stream today. Yeah, where is everybody watching from? I'd like to hear, what state or country you're from. Malta. Wow. From Freedom, Kentucky. Mark. That's awesome. Positive thinking, Kevin. I agree. Let's go SpaceX. They can do this. Oklahoma, Lori. Nice. Hello from Italy and Netherlands. Washington State. We're all over. This is great. I really get excited when people from kind of not only all over the country but other countries are getting excited about this stuff. Louisiana and Sweden. Edmund is from the central coast of California, home of Vandenberg Space Force Base. Hey Edmund, have you ever seen a launch there? I know, most of the time when there's a launch, it's pretty foggy, but I'd be interesting to hear if you've ever successfully seen a launch from there. Oh boy. I'm gonna mute for a second for someone with music going by. Alright, we should be good now. Bumblebee says people have forgotten what it took to get Falcon where it is today. A lot of booms. Yeah, there was the Grasshopper test program, and yeah, a lot of testing at McGregor. So you're totally right. Strato Blasters watching from the couch. Absolutely the best place to watch these types of streams.
Mobile space operation.
Mars 2028 says my local spaceport is Wallops Island, Virginia. I've seen 2 launches from there. Hey Mars, actually, Wallops is my favorite place to see a launch. Now, the Antares launch vehicle is quite a bit smaller than like a Falcon 9, but there's one specific spot that you can go to where you can get like really incredibly close, and it's just kind of tucked away on the river, and it's just such a beautiful place to watch a launch. I've had some of my best rocket launch viewing at Wallops Island. It's kind of a special little launch pad, and you know what? I'm really excited for Rocket Lab to eventually launch the Neutron rocket from there. That's going to be really awesome. Liam Smith, good evening from Ireland. Hey Liam, I spent 4 months, I think, in college in Ireland, and I've gone back since. What a beautiful place it is. I really, really want to spend some more time there. Whereabouts in Ireland are you from? Mitchell, that's really true. Making the world's largest rocket means the world's most amount of setbacks. It's true. When you're trying to push the boundaries and do something that's never been done before, you have to, you got to take a lot of risks. And when those risks actually come to fruition in a negative way, you got to figure out what happened and fix it. Alright, I am going to mute for a quick second. I gotta open my doors here and plug something in, and these doors are really loud when I slam them, so just stand by for a moment. Alright, all set. Thanks everybody for joining so far. If you're just joining us, we're hanging out here looking at Starbase down here in Texas, waiting to see if SpaceX is going to lift Booster 7 off the launch mount and move it over to the build site for inspections. While we're hanging out here, we're just chilling out and answering some questions and just chatting with y'all. So let me know if you have any questions. NRL 111 was your first launch, Mars. That's awesome. Aaron E is in Texas as well. New Zealand. Yeah, Kevin, that's actually something I want to get more into is kind of hobby rocket stuff, because I think it is a great tool to kind of educate children about rockets and science. So that's kind of something I want to learn for myself. That way I can kind of go out and host events and stuff and, you know, help educate and get people excited about this stuff from an early age. The launch pad, are there snacks? Only if you brought enough for the whole class. Dallas area? Nice. You ever spend any time in Deep Ellum? It's actually a pretty nice day out here. Usually it's hot and sunny, and right now it's only 89. I know that might sound hot to a lot of people, but there's a nice cloud layer today, so the sun is not like beating down, and yeah, it's kind of beautiful actually. Aaron, we appreciate you in the chat. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us. You're great. Paul, is there another Falcon 9 later? Yeah, there's a launch tonight, CRS 25. We can drop that link in the chat shortly. Oh, that's really cool, A.S. Russell. Did you hear any sonic booms from that? A suggestion for a telescope under $1,000 for my little bro. So, if anybody else has any suggestions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I got started with a Celestron Astromaster. I want to say it's like a 130 or something. I kind of forget the exact model, but it was more than enough for me. The only thing was it was a little big and kind of clumsy. So if it's something you want to be using like all the time, maybe something a little bit smaller is a better start. But honestly, it was really good. It was just good enough to see the rings around Saturn, and not in individual rings. It kind of just looked like one solid ring around Saturn, and you could also see the moons of Jupiter. So it was a great start for me. You know, hotel after Katrina rebuilding a data center at a cold site. Sounds like a lot of work. $103 where you are, Lori. Wow, that's insane. I know a lot of the country is going through a heat wave right now, hitting levels that really are kind of unheard of for a lot of the country. And, you know, Texas is as well, but mostly North Texas. Down here in South Texas, you know, Brownsville regularly hits over 100 degrees, 105. But over here on the coast, we rarely get above, well, I'm saying this now, I haven't experienced a full summer here yet, but it doesn't really get above 95 on the actual water. You know, we have hit over 100 on one day so far, and I'm sure it's going to happen again, but the water really helps regulate kind of the temperature right here on the coast, which I'm sure the SpaceX employees really appreciate. They have to wear a lot of protective clothing, so I can't imagine working in the Texas heat down there at Starbase, you know, in with the sun and everything. I just can't. Hey Raven, that's a great question. Raven asks, should we be going to space when we can't even figure out basic things on our planet, i.e. healthcare, basic living conditions? So the only thing I can do here is just give you my own personal opinion. You know, this is just me. This is Andrew talking, and my opinion is this. We have a lot of problems here on our planet that we need to figure out how to resolve, and we need to make sure we're putting enough resources into resolving that stuff. But I think people kind of underestimate what we get back from going to space. You know, we've had a constant presence on the International Space Station for the last 20 years. So if you know somebody that's 20 years old, there's never been a moment of their life where people weren't living and working on the ISS, which is crazy. And this whole time we've been doing science up there, and that science, most of it, is even more relevant to back here on Earth. Some things that happen to you in space are like your bones start to deteriorate, your vision starts to deteriorate, and all that research that we put into why that happens helps people with bone loss here and helps people with eyesight issues here. And the technologies that we get back from putting money into space exploration help us with things like water desalination to help, or sorry, not water desalination, but water, what's the word I'm looking for? To clean up water. And that helps, you know, bring water to areas on Earth that don't have good quality water to drink. I think we get more out of a dollar spent in space than, you know, we get from sending it somewhere where all the money won't go to the cause that you want to help. So I don't know. I think people underestimate the amount of money or the amount of things we get back from space exploration. Hey Snorkers, thank you so much for the $5. They say keep up the good work. I appreciate that. Thank you. And Kevin, thank you so much as well. Yeah, John says to fix the problems here, we must first put our differences aside and get rid of greed. Yeah, that's really an honest perspective you have there. And I think one of the few things that brings people together is doing something new that humanity hasn't ever done. You know, you see it with relationships in space. You know, a lot of countries that don't necessarily always work well together sometimes work really well together in space. So. Yeah, purification, water purification hide. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. Thanks again for the question, Raven. Yeah, Mars, I completely agree with that too. Going to space and solving problems on the ground are not mutually exclusive. Exactly. Just think about all the weather satellites that give us, you know, a heads up about major storms that are going to come in the area, and yeah. I mean, without satellites, we would have no idea when a major hurricane was going to hit. So. Raven, another good question. I'm not sure I know. I'm not sure. I would have to take a few minutes to think about that answer. I don't know if we'll do it today on stream, but that is another really insightful question. Mr. Transposon, I do agree with you. Thanks everybody for the interaction here on stream today. I appreciate all the questions and just the ongoing chat. It makes this whole process a lot more exciting and worth it. Yeah, the images we got back from James Webb were incredible, huh? I'd be really interested in hearing what was everybody's favorite image that was released from James Webb so far. Was it the first image that showed the really, the deep field? Was it of the cliffs, the galactic cliffs? Was it of that one nebula? What was your favorite image? See you later, Alessandro. You're building AI, Aaron. That's awesome. Aaron, have you used what is it, DALL-E Mini yet to generate AI images? That was pretty cool. I was playing with that for a bit. Are they moving the booster to the high bay? That is what we're hoping to see today here. I think we do expect that. Deep field lensing hands down. Yeah, it was crazy to see. Crazy to see the light bending and stuff on that. Ravens was deep field as well. The 3 galaxies for Lori. The nebula for John. Wow, yeah. Look at that. People inspired by all of the images. Well, this grackle is staring at me right now. If you're not familiar with a grackle, it's a type of bird down here that make these crazy sounds, but it's just like staring at me. Brady asks, are we going to zoom camera? So this is kind of what we got for our zoom right now, just based on where we are. But as soon as Booster 7 moves, we'll be able to track it with our camera. So. Hard to fathom the vast expanse of the universe. It's literally impossible. It's just, oh man, it's crazy. Lori Fox shared. Yeah, thank you so much, Lori. That's a great point for anybody who's watching along here today with us and interacting in chat and hanging out. It helps us a lot if you like and share and just kind of let the word out for other people that can join us and hang out and watch these exciting events happen and to engage in these discussions. Aaron E asks a great question. Is Booster 7 going to land in the arms? So the plan from SpaceX is to land boosters in those arms eventually. Now, are we 100% definitely going to see that happen at all? It's not definite, but that is the current plan from SpaceX. We know that's the current plan even as recent as a couple weeks ago, where we saw additional hardware arrive at the launch site to be installed on the Chopsticks. That hardware was specifically designed to soften a catch from a booster. In addition to that, in some FCC documents that were released in the last few days, one of the potential options of the first orbital flight test trajectory is to bring Booster 7 back on a boost back burn and land it somewhere shortly off the Gulf or on the launch tower. So as of right now, that is the plan. Will we see Booster 7 do that? I'm not sure. I'd say it's 50-50. Will we ever see any Super Heavy Booster do that? I think most likely, but we'll have to wait and see. Adam says booster going back to the high bay. Yes, quite a good possibility of that happening. We saw them bring up the Chopsticks today and grab it, so we're expecting to see maybe a lift off of the orbital launch mount and then a roll to the high bay. Gaming Nerd says, why is it called an orbital flight test when it's not even going to orbit? So actually, in this test, I would have to look at the most recent publication of its trajectory, but I think it is hitting orbital velocity. Let me double check on that, but I mean, I think it is a true orbital flight test. You might be thinking as well of the hops that were done here last year. Now those definitely did not go to orbit. Those just went up, pretty high, but those did not get even above the Kármán line. Yeah, Aaron, I just want to see it launch. Oh man, a landing would be even better. Hey Leland, yes, we will be streaming the CRS or SPX 25 launch today. Raven, the only thing about space is the speed of light is simply too slow. So true. So true. I can't believe it takes such a long time for us to get light back from these galaxies and stuff. But apparently, I don't know much of the details, but this isn't fake. This is real. I think it was MIT was able to do a first successful test of quantum networking. I don't know enough about that, but it sounds like that could be a really cool piece of technology for data transfer, at least. A lot of work to do to become peaceful civilization. Yep. I think, yeah, we absolutely do. And hopefully projects like this will help bring people together. Starship tests were just short of New Shepard. Gotcha. First person to say your name right, Leland. They released a quantum sensor that can sense frequencies from 0 to any, so they say. Interesting. Worse than snail mail. Oh, yeah. Quantum Tech is definitely cool, but cannot possibly live up to the coolness of its name. Absolutely, Joe. I couldn't agree more. Any idea when ULA will be launching with a BE4? Not specifically, but I'll tell you they've been putting out a lot of more information about it, pictures and test videos. So I think it's getting close there. I think it's getting close, Adam. Yeah, John, this is a great group of people here. Andrew says, so I just got here. Can someone please tell me what's happening? Thanks. Yeah, I can give you a real quick summary, Andrew. So if you've caught up on, I guess either way, whether you're caught up or not caught up about what's happening down here in SpaceX, they're developing a new rocket down here, and they were doing some testing earlier this week. And what we're looking at the screen here, the tallest thing in frame is the orbital launch tower. Just to the left of the orbital launch tower is one of the boosters. We call this Booster 7. They were testing Booster 7 earlier this week, and there was an anomaly. Oh boy, an anomaly. So the testing didn't quite go right, and there was a bit of an explosion at the base of the booster. So what we're seeing here today is it looks like SpaceX is preparing to lift Booster 7 off of the launch mount, place it on an SPMT, which is a transporter, and they're going to drive that all the way from the tower over to the build site. Now let me show you the build site. So we could potentially see that booster make the journey from where you see it now all the way over here to the build site, where they will put it in the high bay or the mega bay. I think the theory is the high bay, which is the one on the left. You know, of the two biggest buildings, it's the one on the left. So we will see if SpaceX indeed does move Booster 7 today. We'll see it make this journey. You didn't miss the lifting yet, the real. Yeah, Adam, BE4 looks awesome. Mr. Transportation asks, is NASA funding any of the Starship or Chopstick research? I feel like they should match some amount at this point. In fact, Mr. Did I say your name wrong? Transposon. Yes, so they are. So Starship is actually contracted as a lunar lander vehicle. So some of NASA's budget is going to the development of Starship to develop it as a lander. So the idea is with the Artemis program with NASA, you know, the orange rocket, the big SLS, that will launch people on the top of it, bring people to the moon's orbit, and then they'll get in a Starship and take a Starship down to the actual surface of the moon. So yeah. Do we know how badly Booster 7 was damaged? Less than everybody kind of thought, but we don't know the extent of it yet. So they want to bring it back potentially to the high bay and check it out and see, you know, the extent of the damage to the engines. But I think the consensus right now is things are looking better than they originally thought. Didn't Booster 7 explode, or did they already fix it? Yeah, so there was an explosion at the base of the vehicle, but Booster 7 didn't explode. It just caused an explosion, if that makes sense. James Webb is the real story. Yeah, it depends. It depends what. Yeah, it depends kind of on your thoughts about it sounds silly to say, but life and stuff, and how we spend our money and our time. But in my opinion, they're both really, really important missions. When is it going to lift up? We're not quite sure yet, but they did raise those chopsticks up from the base of Booster 7 up to the top of it. So that you would expect that to happen prior to a lift. There's a little bit of a breeze down here. I think that the chopsticks have less of an issue with wind than a crane does. I don't know if that's a consideration, but just something that I'm thinking about. But yeah, it remains to be seen. We will find out. How's it going, Uncle Yukon? Yeah, exactly, Adam. That was an unintended ignition. I think where it was just such a violent event as far as the shockwave goes, they took a flashlight, obviously, and got up underneath the engines to take a look. I think it really just comes down to them needing to get an even better look and probably, I would imagine, take them out, or take at least some of them out. They did replace one of the Raptors on it last night, which is interesting. The tower is a feat in itself, such an amazing engineering. It really is. That's why they call it Stage 0. It is as complicated, if not more complicated, than the first stage of the vehicle. It's really insane, especially with the chopsticks, and the orbital launch mount is insane. It's so huge and complicated. Not even complicated. They've kind of made everything as simple as possible, but it does so much. That could be it watching. I'm gonna mute for 30 seconds here while I play with this styrofoam, styrofoam, and take a bite of the sandwich. All right. 10 p.m. local. So, Philip, the road closure ends at 10 p.m. Central Time. Stealth. Not fish. I'm not fishing, but there are a lot of people fishing down here today. Oh, this guy just caught something actually. I was gonna potentially pan over, but I don't have his permission, so I won't. How far away from the booster is this camera? We're about, I think, 5 miles. Somewhere between 4 and 6 miles. Actually getting a really nice shot from here today. There's not a ton of moisture in the air, and the clouds are, I think, helping kind of create a better backdrop. Not a lot of haze, so I've seen clearer days, but this is a pretty good one. Adam, did you actually make it down here to Starbase? Divine, no liftoff today, but there is a SpaceX mission tonight from Florida that you can watch out for tonight. Hey, thanks, Stealth. I appreciate that. Michael says the road closure may be terminated before 10 if no other launch pad tests will take place after the B7 roll back to production. That's very true. And it's kind of funny that the road closure is still up because they can roll the booster back without a road closure. So it makes me wonder if they are planning on doing some other type of test today, or if because of the issue, because of the explosion, if they're just being safe and when they roll this thing back, they just want nobody near it. But yeah, that's a great point. Check out this America boat coming. Hi, so they replaced the damaged engines already. They actually did replace one, but they are they're waiting to determine if others are going to need replacement too, and just the health of B7 in general. You were down in February, Adam. You're going to come back down? Yeah, Adam, keep in touch. Make sure you let us know when you're coming down. Next crewed launch to ISS, John? That's a good question. I think it's actually coming up pretty soon. Let me double check on that. If anybody in chat knows, please feel free to drop it in the chat. Greetings from Poland. Where in Poland are you, gals? Yo, ice cream sounds great right now, Tablet. All right, so assuming that, let's play a game of hypotheticals here. SpaceX delivers Booster 7 to the build site, and they determine that Booster 7 is in decent shape and needs minimal repairs. I think hypothetically, we could see those repairs happen pretty quickly, and we could see Booster 7 back on the launch pad within a week or two. Again, this is hypothetical, which means, we could get back into a good testing campaign in in coming weeks. So if you're kind of excited to see what's happening with all the stuff down here in the next month or two leading up to an orbital launch test, make sure you're following along and subscribe and get notifications on, because we will be live for these events. So if you want to be notified about them, just make sure you drop a sub and notifications as well. And we'll do our best to cover all this stuff for you. Ice cream truck at Starbase, that would be awesome. That would be really awesome, Adam. Gives time to do more with S24. Absolutely, S24 will be well tested before it launches. Yeah, that's a great point. We should see. I would expect to see some more S24 testing in short notice. In coming days. Tomorrow, no, but maybe early next week. We'll have to wait and see, but I could see that happening. Usual space stuff. Wait 2 hours for 2 minutes or something. Absolutely, kind of comes with the industry, but it's gonna, you wait 2 hours for the 2 most exciting minutes of your life. Yeah, Kevin, I'm gonna get some ice cream later, maybe. We're going on like close to an hour and a half, maybe a little over an hour and a half since SpaceX lifted up those arms. So hopefully we'll see that lift happening pretty soon. I'm going to do a quick mute here for a moment. Just give me a second. All right, I'm back with you. If you're just joining us, my name is Andrew. You're watching the launch pad, and we're here with you live on site, looking at Starbase down here in Texas. We're expecting SpaceX to lift Booster 7 off the launch pad and potentially roll it out to the build site. So right now we have a live view of the launch site, waiting for a lift to happen. And if they do lift Booster 7 today, which looks likely, we will see it roll, or we'll potentially see it roll to the build site. So we'll have a full view of that. I'm panning over You'll get the whole journey for Booster 7 out to the build site. So it should be cool to watch. The crawler is already there, Adam. It's I think it's right next to the launch pad, which leads me to believe that this is going to be happening soon. It's all good, Liminal. Right, correct, Yukon. Dramatic pan, right. Yeah, maybe it's better to zoom out and then pan. Yeah, these birds dive pretty crazy and grab their fish out of the water. It's kind of insane. It looks like it hurts. Adam, that's a really good point as well. The Raptor 2 is considerably smaller than the Space Shuttle main engines, RS-25s. Not only are they considerably smaller, but they are more powerful as well, which is insane. Looking for the offending boat. Luckily, none of these boats, even during overpressure notices, which we do not have today, to be clear, but even during overpressure notices, boats can be in this canal. This is a really important canal for industry. We are on the what the heck? Why can't I think of the name of it? Anyway, it leads to the port of Brownsville. So a lot of import-export stuff happens through this canal. So in the event that SpaceX lifts Booster 7 off the pad, the place to be watching for is the bottom of Booster 7. We will see that have a gap and the arms will raise. We'll see it shift into position. So we're keeping our eyes peeled for anything that looks like that. I will go kind of set up my tripods here. I want to get some other video going if they're lifting this pretty soon. Yep, bear with me for a moment. We're gonna mute again. Okay. I'm just going to be setting cameras up and stuff, so stand by for a while. Feel free to ask any questions. I will definitely get to them. Not sneezing, just when I get in and out of the car to set up cameras and stuff, I mute because the door. You know what? I'll show you the beeping sound. Oh gosh, that was a lot louder than I thought. Sorry, but that's why I mute. I saw that completely peaked out the audios there for a second. Francisco asked, do I think SpaceX is rushing the tests? I think they had a lot of time to kind of build the vehicles up to what they wanted to while they were working to, waiting for the FAA approval. I want to say this correctly. I don't think the FAA held up SpaceX. I think SpaceX used that time for really important things and getting everything together for, when they did get approved, that the vehicles would be in pretty good shape. If you guys could just give me a heads up and let me know if you can hear of any of the music that's happening in the background. Right now it's not loud, but sometimes it happens, and I just want to make sure that, I want to make sure that we don't get like a copyright strike or anything. It's people are just enjoying their day down here, so they're naturally hanging out, fishing, playing music and stuff. Oh, hey, breaking news. We have breaking news. Booster 7 is in the air. We are live with you down here looking at Starbase, where Booster 7 is currently in the air. SpaceX is lifting Booster 7 off of the orbital launch mount, and shortly we should see them move that over to the transporter, the SPMT. And once they put that on the transporter, we're expecting to see Booster 7 rolled back to the build site. So again, we currently see Booster 7 being held in the air by the launch tower. And bear with me for a second, I'm going to get some cameras rolling. All right, we have cameras rolling. We are back. If you're just joining us, SpaceX has lifted Booster 7 off the orbital launch mount, and we're hoping to see them put that on the SPMT and roll it back to the build site. So that's what you're seeing right now. Let's go, SpaceX. Very cool. I'm excited that we're getting to see this happen today. This is going to be an important step in getting Booster 7 back in shape for launch, or to figure out if it's going to be a safe vehicle to use for orbital. So this is an important step that we're seeing happening right now. You can see that I'm pretty sure you can now see the arms swinging Booster 7 to kind of put it in place to be dropped back down. That might have been a little bit of a premature call. I don't know if they're quite swinging it into place yet, but Booster 7 remains lifted in the air by the orbital launch tower Chopsticks. Paul D says, crazy construction lifting such a giant thing. I know, isn't the orbital launch tower and OLM just such an amazing feat of engineering? It's absolutely insane. Infinite Space, thanks for joining. The SPMT is standing by just next to the orbital launch mount, waiting to receive Booster 7. Yeah, Michael, it really did happen fast. I'm gonna check to make sure my camera's still rolling. Cameras are good, cameras are still rolling. We're getting a great view of the Booster 7 lift. I know a friend Will is watching, so Will, thanks for tuning in. Nodlick says, howdy y'all, do we have an ETA yet? Well, one of the events we expect to see are happening now, so I would say our ETA is T-minus 0. We are currently seeing the booster lifted off of the orbital launch mount. Kevin, it's really an amazing thing to see any of these activities in person. If you ever get a chance to come down to Starbase, I definitely recommend it. Michael says the booster is swinging over. Do we see the booster swinging into place? It's a little bit hard to tell from the perspective we're at. You keep an eye on the water too. You will see a dolphin here in a second. Actually, by the time you hear this, it might be too late. The swing has begun. If you wouldn't mind just giving me a status check on audio, give me a 5x5 if we're sounding good. If we're sounding a little bit like we're cutting in and out, just give me a heads up.
We're not going to walk in the sand because we don't want to get your dinosaur sandals all gutted.
If you're just joining, you are joining at a good time. We are live here with live views of Starbase. Booster 7 is in the air via the Chopsticks on the orbital launch tower. And we expect SpaceX to place Booster 7 onto an SPMT. I'm getting a lot of audio 5x5s. Audio is good. Thank you so much for the feedback. This stream is being brought to you via satellite internet, so very occasionally we will have some glitches, but I think it's pretty cool to be an early adopter of this technology. And you know, if we have a few moments like that, I think it's okay. John says his 5G feed is very good. That's good. I'm glad to hear the video is looking good. Yeah, they are being nice and slow and careful as they lift Booster 7. Now we can very clearly see that SpaceX has maneuvered the booster off of the tower and placing it above the SPMT. Where is what is going to take it to the bay? Lori Fox asks. So I think that question is, how is it going to get from the launch site to the high bay? And that would be with the use of an SPMT, or a self-propelled moving transporter, I believe is the appropriate name for it. So it's basically a flat vehicle with many wheels, solid rubber wheels that can withstand a lot of weight, and that vehicle, with the help of some other auxiliary vehicles, in the front and back, just to kind of make sure it is safe and secure, will actually drive it from the launch site to the build site. Yep, there's a SpaceX launch later tonight. I am going to mute up here for just a second, but enjoy our live views of Booster 7 being moved onto the transporter. I'll be back with you shortly, but we're staying here live with live views of the booster, just muting for a minute. Feel free to ask any questions in chat, and we'll be back with you to answer those questions in just a couple minutes. All right. SpaceX has started to lower Booster 7 onto the SPMT. So we'll have to stand by here over the next few minutes to see if we see this thing rolling. So Paul asks a couple minutes ago if we can stand here with the camera during a launch. Technically, yes. There is some speculation and rumors that they might push back the exclusion zone for their first launch. Again, those are nothing more than speculation and rumors. If they don't push it back, yeah, we'll be able to hang out here and watch the launch. If they do push it back, we'll have to find another spot, but that's okay.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You're looking at a live view of Starbase, Texas, where SpaceX has lifted a Booster 7 off the orbital launch mount successfully.
Will be joining us on here in just a few minutes. Stand by for some additional commentary that will be starting up shortly. What we've seen so far is a successful lift of B7 off of the orbital launch mount onto the self-propelled transporter, SPMT. So I guess the next step here today is to see if we're going to see this rollback all the way out to the build site, which will be really cool to watch. So stand by, and like I said, we will be back with commentary in just a couple minutes.
And just like that, we switched to TLP Studio One just that quick, even faster than Andrew could say it on air. But we are so glad to have Andrew as part of our TLP team, and we can only do that thanks to your guys' generous support over the last few months, being able to expand out and get TLP rocket chasers at the Space Coast and now also at Starbase, Texas. We're going to be working on getting live cams down at both sites for 24/7 coverage, as well as for special coverage for events like today, where we're seeing Booster 7 lifted off the orbital mount. We were so close to being live for that test a couple of days ago, where we experienced that anomaly. I'm not kidding. We were maybe 3 or 4 minutes away from hitting go live when we had the explosion occur at the base of Booster 7, and it was like, no, like it couldn't happen 10 minutes later. But we are glad that there will be more, hopefully not more explosions, but there will be more testing in the near future, and you'll be able to watch those all live right here on the launch pad. Here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together, and we are so glad to have you guys all here with us. If you haven't yet and you're just joining us, drop us in the chat, let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to welcome you here, and don't forget to engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, Starbase coverage, exclusive one-on-one interviews, space news updates are coming back very soon, and more, because here at the Launchpad we strive to bring you everything space from around the world in one place. If you guys have questions, you can send those to us in the chat, and we'll be answering those live throughout the remainder of today's broadcast as we wait to see if SpaceX will immediately begin moving Booster 7 back to the high bay at the build site based on Elon tweets. At this time, they are just starting to lower the booster. I know it looks down here. It's got to get a little bit lower. The engines are just about to touch the STMP, so just a little bit more lowering until we can go to the lift complete. And then we'll wait to see that pad open back up, crews approach the vehicle, and then prepare for a possible rollback, or maybe we will see road open as well. We'll see which order those come in. Of course, tonight we also are going to be having our launch of CRS-25 after about a month and a half of delay, so we hope you'll join us for that. And there is the pirate ship, which you all know and love, passing view. Amazing views as always. If you guys haven't gone down to South Padre yet and you're heading down at some point, definitely add a day and check out some of these boats. This isn't sponsored, but I went down on the last trip I did. The first time I went down and did one of the boat excursions. Super affordable and absolutely amazing, and the team that we were on was great as well. So really love to get to do another one of those. Some of them go more into the channel, others go deeper into the Bay of Brownsville and actually into the port. So lots of options on what you're actually going to be able to do. So couple of questions come in the chat for it. Great question coming in from Capstar about just the location of these cameras. So this camera is at the location where we will be able to be for our launch coverage. So we were doing first testing of all of our systems there to make sure we'll be able to bring you uninterrupted coverage from the orbital launch attempt and getting all that equipment online. We are working on having roadside coverage at times. Andrew can go do that with this setup too. But for when there's times that there are road closures, obviously Andrew can't be roadside, so we have to work on remote units. And we are working on those, but we are wanting to make sure that we are respecting all of the Natural Wildlife Reserve rules, the county rules on where those vehicles can be, but also units that are stationed in the fields. There are some small areas of private property in the area, but there is a lot of private federal property that some people can set stuff up on and isn't technically maybe supposed to be there. So we're trying to make sure we stay in all those guidelines to make sure we can still bring you guys the best possible coverage, but not have to be moving something every couple of days. But we are hoping to have something roadside 24/7 in the next couple of months, and that's thanks to your guys' generous support, so make sure you stay tuned for that. For times when we are able to be roadside, things like the lift, they clear a bigger area, especially after the anomaly a few days ago. But in the past, and we expect in the future, for things like just rollout and just, things like that, we will be able to be closer for coverage there. So great question there. John Ferris asks, how fast does the crawler move? They move a couple miles an hour. They don't have far to go, only about 2 miles. So that's why they are able to get back to the high bay rather quickly, generally about an hour, not even. They're able to get once they really get underway outside that gate at Starbase. The slowest part of the move is actually them leaving the launch site and pulling into the actual build site area, just due to the restrictive areas of the gates. But once they're on that road's generally closed, or they'll have a rolling roadblock with it, and there isn't an issue for them to kind of get to, not top speed, but really get these boosters moving. And when you see these boosters in person, you really can't, from this perspective, you can kind of grasp the size of it, seeing that crane, but you have to remember, that crane is also massive too. The ship itself you're looking at on the right side of the launch site here, I have to remember that's 12 to 13 stories tall. On the left, then you have the booster and the tower. This is a very large complex. So when you see one of these things moving quickly, it might not be moving super quickly actually on the ground when you're next to it. But they're so large, it's amazing to see something the size of a 13 to 15 story building, just roll by you, just like a golf cart, just off to the build site. So that's where that is. Krampus is asking, what's the distance from position to the launch site? We are at about 5 miles. We're right on about the exclusion zone. And so we're doing the testing to make sure we'll be ready for the orbital launch. We're working on actually having multiple feeds at different angles slightly to be able to bring that to you. So make sure you have engaged that subscribe button so you don't miss that. The booster right now is just dangling in the air. They haven't set it down just yet. We've got a little bit more to go before the booster has been fully set down, is set into that STMP. But it looks like the teams are getting prepared for that. Great to see the Chopsticks back in operations following that anomaly during testing a few days ago, as we weren't sure what was going to happen with the Chopsticks, because they had removed one of the it looked like hydraulic systems of the Chopsticks, so the Chopstick was actually free swinging a fair amount, and when that anomaly went off, it swung quite a bit. So glad to see that the Chopsticks were able to be inspected and immediately put back into service. I think that's one of the biggest things our team was concerned about with the anomaly wasn't booster. They can make another booster, but stage 0, the launch site, the orbital launch mount, the tank farm, Mechzilla, that all needs to operate, and that's not easy to replace depending on what's damaged. So the fact that clearly stage 0 is still operational is a really great sign. It makes sense. Those 33 boosters are really crammed in there. We did see them remove one booster last night, but or one engine, excuse me. But we are expecting to see this rollback to the high bay for more detailed inspection. That's from an Elon tweet a couple of days ago that that's just going to be the best bet. They need to inspect this, especially with this being their first orbital launch attempt. They don't want it to have any major issues when that comes up. So that's a great question there. If you guys have questions, let me know in the chat. Take us at the launch pad. We'll be answering those live as we go through today's count-ish down to hopefully a rollback to the high bay as well. I know we've got a nice view here that we'll be able to follow that booster all the way back to the high bay throughout its process there, should they choose to actually move it along today. The road closure is in effect until 10 p.m., but keep in mind that road closure could be ended pretty much at any time. They do not need that road closure for rollback to the high bay. It make it easier since they've already got everything closed, but they could reopen that sooner. Great question from Martin. What has been learned from the anomaly? A lot on SpaceX's end. We don't know a lot. They haven't shared a lot just yet, and that makes sense. This is a test facility, so keep in mind that we shouldn't know everything that they know. For it, this is a testing system of a brand new system, something larger than we've ever made in human history. So they've learned a lot. Keep in mind they have cameras, kind of all over the facility on what they're watching and being able to see. So they have a lot more data than we've been told. They'll know exactly the moment of ignition, what was happening. Was it a valve? Seems like NASA has a valve thing. So we hope that that's not a SpaceX thing. But at this time, we know everything was proceeding well. They were doing a spin test and something had an ignition sequence. And that's what we don't know yet. Maybe one day we'll find out. But at this point, we do not have that answer. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat. Tag us at the launch pad. We'll be answering those live. So, unknown error, great question there. 1, we always stream our own content. 2, a number of other channels do not allow restreaming. So if you do see other people restreaming other channels, That is not actually something that is a licensed thing. These are companies, just like you can't restream shows, TV and movies, same kind of idea. There are restrictions there. There's a difference if they've embedded it on their website, because then that feed still goes to the owner. But if someone's restreaming it with their own overlays and commentary, that's not actually allowed. Just like we have certain parameters on who can restream our content for it. So there's a great group of Team Space down there on site that we all know, and it's a great community to be part of, but want to make sure we protect everyone's hard work too, because this is a lot of hard work. Julia is asking, did the explosion delay the orbital? At this time, maybe by a few weeks, but it depends what they see when they get back to the high bay. That's the big thing. Also, Starship 24 still has to go through its testing, so something to keep in mind there. Still a number of milestones that have to be achieved before that orbital flight test can occur. Martin, will the anomaly affect the ability of Booster 7 to survive Max Q? It shouldn't. They said Elon did confirm that pressures were within normal parameters on the booster, so it doesn't seem like there was any issues there. That is correct, unknown. And yeah, it absolutely is Anderson. Some people allow it, some don't. Doing streaming is not cheap. We do it for the passion of it, so we're super excited to be able to do that. But there is quite a bit of a cost to being able to do so as well. So yeah, Lori, the chopsticks have moved. The booster has been lifted off the orbital launch mount. It has swung over, and it's now like 95% of the way down. We're just waiting for them to lower it the last little bit into the actual STMP, or the kind of mobile, not launcher, mobile pad mover vehicle that they'll use to roll it back to the high bay. But at this point, it's still about 10-15 feet off the ground. So we got a little bit more lift to go before we click it over to that lift complete. If you guys have questions ever about where we're at in the status of our Starbase coverage, and we're going to work on rolling this out on our live coverage for launches as well, on the top of your screen there's a title of what activity is happening today, as well as where in the process we are at. So we have gone through road closure, pad clear, chopsticks attached, lift started, and booster swing. We're now at lift, waiting to mark as lift complete. But super excited to be able to bring this to you live. First time we've been able to do so from our own TLP rocket chaser Andrew, who's down in Starbase. Super excited to have him there. So we got lots of Starbase coverage coming your way in the near future. While we wait for them to set it down, a couple things we'll point out. If you haven't yet, head on over to the TLP shop. We got a bunch of SpaceX Starbase inspired gear that you can pick up. Great time to order now to have it ready for the orbital launch attempt, as well as some SLS gear. You can check that out. Make sure you have followed us over on Twitter, where we live tweet updates about space news and live streams as they happen. And if you want to be part of an awesome space community, consider joining us over on our TLP Discord. We got a bunch of people hanging out in live comms today, but we've been in there pretty much every day talking space, answering questions, as we really live through this new era of space exploration and technology advancements, and really excited to invite you to join that. If you like what we do and like to help support us to be able to do even more, we've got lots of plans, hoping to launch a number of 24/7 cameras by the end of the year. A couple ways you can do so. Check out our Patreon link. That's where most of your funds would actually go to us. But if YouTube's easier, you can hit that YouTube join button, then they'll take about 30% of that, but then the rest comes to us and goes straight into our operational costs, into making sure we can bring you that best possible coverage. Never expected, but greatly appreciated. Super chats also work as well. YouTube takes a chunk of those, but we always try to just be transparent on that so you guys know where your money's going, because we think that's important. And we can only do this thanks to your guys' generous support. Absolutely, Francisco. Thanks so much. Martin, do you have statistical data on max Q for the different rockets? Not on hand, but I will soon. And We won't say much yet, but we have a really, really, really big announcement that we'll be making in the next few weeks, we're hoping, something we've been dreaming of for a while, since pretty much day one, so 18 months ago. But we are very excited to almost be at the point where we can release it publicly. And it's going to help answer a lot of that type of information. And it will expand and grow as space exploration grows with more data. So stay tuned for that. Lots more information to come there. Thanks so much, Francis. Appreciate it. Julia, the Launchpad will be streaming CRS. We will. We've got that live stream scheduled. If you click on just the Launchpad below this one to head to our channel, you should be able to see that stream pre-scheduled. So you'll be able to join us live for that later this evening. Liftoff scheduled for 8:44 p.m. Eastern Time. So we'll be going live a little bit before that. We're still working on getting our Kennedy cams online, so we rely on SpaceX right now. And unfortunately, they've delayed to just 5 minutes before launch coverage these days. So a little bit shorter coverage, but makes it nice as well. If you want to jump into a community as we watch through fueling, we will have that in our live comms on our Discord. Awesome, Julie. Glad you can see that. If you're just joining us, though, you're looking at a live view of Starbase, Texas, down in where SpaceX has lifted Booster 7 off the orbital launch mount and is preparing to set it back down on an STMP. At this time, it's kind of just hanging out in the air. It's got about 15 feet more to be lowered, to be complete for the lift operation, but at this time they have not done that as of yet. But Ken, if you want to rewind about 30-40 minutes, and you should be able to see that happens there. Capstar, the lift disclaimer says they'll start. I'm wondering if... So there's two things that could be Capstar. One, because it's a cargo resupply, they might be going live sooner because it's a NASA mission. Very likely. Second thing is that they may have scheduled that stream like 2 months ago when it was supposed to launch, and they just haven't updated it. Like, I know our launch coverage stream for it has been published for 2 months. We've just kept adjusting the dates. So we'll double check. We'll see if we can get that confirmed or not. 8:44 p.m. tonight, SpaceX CRS-25 is scheduled to lift off. We hope you all join us for that, but we're going to stay live as we watch Booster 7 kind of complete its lift, and we'll wait to see if it has a rollback to the high bay. Sounds great, Capstar. That's what I figured. Figured someone would probably catch on that they needed to do an update. It's been up there for a couple months. We're going to take a quick pause in our commentary. I'll be back soon, or Andrew will be back shortly, so make sure you stay with us as we await to see Booster 7 possibly roll back to the high bay. We're just waiting to see them lower at that last 10 to 15 feet onto the STMP as well, completing today's Booster 7 lift. So stay with us right here on the launch pad as you watch a live view of Starbase, Texas, and the lift and possible return of Booster 7 to the high bay. And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You're looking at a live view of Starbase, Texas, where SpaceX has completed Booster 7's lift with the Chopsticks off the Orbital launch mount. They have lowered it onto the STMP in preparation for rollback to the high bay, possibly later today or bright and early tomorrow morning. We haven't had any signs of that yet. The Chopsticks are still attached, so we're keeping a close eye on that to see if crews and stuff are returning to the pad and what operations will begin. What we're going to do, just because we are limited a little bit on just our battery constraints, and we want to make sure we can try to bring you that full rollout as we have the convoy of boats that pass away in front of the view here. We're going to wrap up our live feed for now, and when we see them begin rollback procedures, once those chopsticks are open and they start to move the booster to the place where we see that they're going to roll it back, not just move it away, we will go back live again for the rollback of Booster 7 to the high bay from this advantage point, because it gives us a great view of it rolling from the Starbase launch site back to high bay. So we hope you will join us then for that. But if it's your first time here, though, welcome. You've been watching our live view with commentary from both Andrew and myself, Zach, here on the launch pad of the lift of Booster 7 off the Orbital launch mount at Starbase, Texas, following an anomaly during testing a few days ago. Booster 7 will go back to the high bay for a few days for some detailed inspections of the engines, and we'll proceed thoroughly from there. We'll see if they are going to be able to do any repairs if needed, or if Booster 7 will be back out at the pad quickly to resume its testing campaign. If you guys have any last questions, you can send those in the chat, and we'll be answering those for the next couple of minutes before we wrap up here for a little bit of a pause prior to getting ready for rollback. Thanks so much, Lori. Appreciate it. Thanks, John, as well. Great to have you here. And if it's your first time here, though, welcome here at the Launchpad. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. We hope you'll join us for possible rollback later tonight, but also tonight, the launch of CRS-25, launching from Pad 39A at NASA Kennedy Space Center to the SpaceX Falcon 9, finally launching cargo back to the ISS after a bit of a delay due to a valve, and we will go from there. Are we located within the TFR? We're located within one of the couple of the circles, but not the main circle. So SpaceX is looking at possibly expanding their exclusion zones. So we do have to keep a close eye on that, but we are totally in a safe place to be, where we're allowed to be streaming. We're on a public beach, so we're allowed to be there. But there are quite a few restrictions on drone flying in the region due to Starbase, but also due to the Brownsville airport. So lots to keep in mind there, but boating is highly encouraged, as you can see with the convoys of boats that we see go by quite frequently. Again, we hope that you will join us later today for possible rollback, or maybe tomorrow morning. We'll take a look and see. If you haven't yet, follow us over on our Twitter at @TLPN_official. We'll be tweeting out updates when we're about to go live or how things are going. And if you want to follow along, ooh, there was a nice big dive from a pelican. Join us over on our Discord. That's where our community hangs out. It's totally free to join, and you can get connected there and get kind of some heads up when we're about to go live. If you'd like to help support what we do, head on over to our Patreon, or consider hitting that join button. Join button, YouTube takes their chunk. Patreon, we get most of it, and you can help support what we do and get behind the scenes access to see some of the raw experiences of how we do our streams, video editing editing, script writing, whole bunch of stuff. Really helps us out to bring you guys the best possible space coverage from around the world, and is the reason why we are so excited to have Andrew as our TLP rocket chaser and correspondent down at Starbase. Our TLP rocket chasers are deploying all over Kennedy tonight for CRS 25, so make sure to stay tuned for some of those photos as well. But make sure you've rung that notification bell so you never miss another live stream. But for now, this is Zach from TLP Network Studios and Andrew from Starbase signing off. We'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.